What's up, my friends? Welcome to this episode of the Whole Health Rob Carney Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Carney. Today, I'm joined by my friend Move with Jenn. Jenn is the owner of Move with Jenn, an online yoga community that creates a safe, supportive space to explore yoga so you feel empowered to handle anything life throws at you. She's based out of Toronto, Canada, and she's been practicing yoga since 2011 and starting teaching yoga back in 2020. And through Move with Jenn, she's teaching vinyasa, yin, restorative, and yoga nidra. So for more details, check her out at movewithjenn.com. We will have all the links that we talk about in the description box. And I want to encourage you to check out Jenn's YouTube channel. She's done a really great job on there. I've been a guest on a couple of her YouTube lives, and she throws a lot of great content out on there. So check out Move with Jenn on YouTube. Check out the Whole Connections on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, awesome. Please subscribe to both. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you listen to, we'd love to hear a review. And if you like this episode, share with a friend. So Jenn, welcome to the show, my friend.
Woohoo! Thanks so much, Rob. That was awesome. It's so great to be here. And thanks everyone who's watching this. Really excited to be here with you today. So hello.
It's fun to just see the expansion of our collaboration. I think we've done a couple Instagram lives. We've done some YouTube lives. We've done a little things here and there, but I feel like this is the first concrete official collaboration we're doing together that's going to reach the masses. So I'm excited to dive in. And obviously you have a really big passion for yoga, and it's always inspiring to see you doing yoga out in the snow in Canada when sometimes I'm in Boston and it's probably just about as cold. Maybe you've got a little bit colder up there, and I'm thinking I don't want to go outside, and I see Jenn doing yoga in the snow. So it motivates me. But I'd love to just start with hearing your yoga journey, because you've obviously been doing this for, sounds like 11 years or so now. And just how did you get into it, and how did it get you to where you are now?
Yeah, you know what? I wish it was a good story, but it was as simple as, I was finishing college or university at the time. And I had a lot of friends that were kind of getting into yoga. It was kind of like the hot new thing, if you want to put it that way. And at the time, I was someone who was really, really not calm. I was very stressed. I was so anxious. And funny enough, that's not what brought me to yoga. It brought me there because everybody said it was so fun, or that I might like it. So I ended up joining my first class, and the first class that I did was the first time in my life that my brain had ever turned off. And it was just like, the focus of being in that class and connecting to the breath and all of that. It got me so hooked because being someone who was so stressed and so anxious, I had never experienced what it would be like to get out of my head. And I just became very, I don't know, addicted maybe to that feeling of that calm and that centered. And so that's what got me there. I've done quite a few different styles since then, trying to sort of figure out what resonated with me. I started at a studio. I was there for a really long time. They were amazing. And then I moved, and it was really hard to kind of find studios. So, for probably, I don't even know, like 5, 6, maybe even 7 years, my yoga journey was really up and down. So I was having a hard time finding the right studio. I was having a hard time finding the right teacher. I just didn't really feel like I was fitting in anywhere. And also, I was really focused on my career. So trying to figure out time to actually even practice was hard. And just how do I fit it into my life? How do I actually make time for it? Because I felt like every class had to be this 60-minute thing, and I had to practice every day for, me to be good enough for me to, practice yoga the right way. And yeah, so that kind of brought me to where I am now. So, I mean, honestly, I wanted to start teaching a lot longer. I mean, a lot earlier probably is the right way to say it. And, it wasn't until kind of the pandemic hit that I was like, no, you know what, I need to do this. And so I've been teaching now for, I guess almost 2 years now. And it's been, oh my gosh, it's been amazing. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just went around in circles, but I'll pause for a second.
Perfect. And it's funny you mentioned there about the first time you did yoga was the first time your brain kind of shut off there from the stress mode. And it's always amazing to me and how we live in this fast-paced age where we're so go, go, go. The most time we don't even realize we're stressed until we're not stressed anymore. We're so caught up in that world of stress that it takes some event to be like, holy crap, I didn't even know I was holding on to that. It's like the analogy of like you're holding the backpack of bricks, and until you put down the backpack, you didn't even know you're carrying it, but you're just feeling some heavy pressure on you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's why it's crazy, right? Because you don't realize how you're like in this constant loop until, like you said, you take that step back and you're like, whoa, that was weird. That felt really different than how I've been feeling up until now.
Absolutely. And then another thing you mentioned there is about, thinking you had to do a 60-minute class all the time to be good enough to be, whatever feeling of, having to do it right. So that's a big thing I know you are a huge advocate of, and I'm a big fan of as well. I can't even tell you the last time I did a 60-minute yoga class. For me, it's implementing 2 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there, 20 minutes there, wherever it fits into my lifestyle. And a lot of times I like to do it in the morning or before bed. But let's kind of dive into that because I think that is a misconception. When people think of yoga, I think we can often get caught up in like I don't know if dogmatic's the right word, but the idea that we have to do it one
Dogma was
way.
exactly what I was
Okay,
thinking. So
good.
I think it might be the right word.
So I want to have you dive into that topic because I think it's important.
Yeah, no, I think it's so important because you're right. Like you get caught up in, this is what the pose should look like, or this is, it has to be a 60-minute practice and it has to be in the morning before the sun rises, or like, I have to practice 6 days a week for me to get any benefit or for me to do it the right way. And, I think the right way is exactly what you're doing, right? Is it's looking at your lifestyle and meeting yourself where you are, right? So like taking a step and saying, okay, like does a 60-minute practice fit into my day? And maybe today it does, but maybe tomorrow it's 2 minutes because that's actually all you have time for. And, I think just having the consistency of 1 minute every day is good enough, even 30 seconds, right? And it's trying to like get out of your head of what that looks like too. So, maybe one day you're doing breath work. Maybe the next day you're, doing a vinyasa practice. Maybe the next day you're, just laying in shavasana for 5 minutes. I think it's just checking in and tuning in with yourself. And, I think that this also comes back to a lot of stuff with the fitness industry and being consistent. But even if you miss a day or you miss two, so what? Then, if you've got time the following day, then try again, come back to your practice. And I think it's, thinking about things in terms of more of a lifestyle than it is about, these like unrealistic goals that we set, because like the reality is life happens. So whether it fits into your lifestyle, you kind of need to figure out how to do that. But also life events happen, like someone gets sick, you get sick, just something crazy happens, like, maybe there's some kind of like a weather craziness going on, a big storm or something that you need to plan for, or that you couldn't plan for, and something crazy happens. And so it's how do you sort of like bring this into your life so you have it when you need it, and not like just lose it because it doesn't fit in because you don't have 60 minutes to practice.
Right. And just like you're saying too, you mentioned like at one point I think you said you moved away from a yoga studio or, it stopped fitting into your schedule. And that's something is that I look at all these different health practices. It's a tool in the toolbox. That's what yoga is. It's a tool in the toolbox that we can use when that tool is needed. And I use this analogy all
Totally.
the time. If you have a screw, you're not going to use a hammer for the screw. You're going to use a screwdriver or a drill or the appropriate tool for that challenge. And so for me, I'm not doing a structured yoga practice per se when I'm stretching. I'm using that tool with foam rolling. I'm using that practice with breath work, like you're saying. I'm interweaving it with different tools, and that's what works for me. And that's what I think is beautiful about the tool of yoga. And you mentioned there's, vinyasa, there's yin yoga, hatha yoga. We can go off kripalu, we can go off all these different types of yoga. And ultimately, for me, I prefer the restorative yogas, the yin yogas, the hatha yogas, the things that are more on the yin side, restoration, because I like to do my yang activities in other places. Yang yoga for me is not my cup of tea, but the yin yoga is exactly what I need because I don't give myself enough yin in my life. So
Mhm.
using that as a tool, I think is really important to recognize. And, a topic I want to dive into is, really, like you mentioned, relaxing the mind through the body. And people find this through all sorts of ways. People talk about running, getting their runner's high. They talk about, rock climbing, hiking, swimming, all these different types of movements that allow us to reconnect with the mind. And I want to just kind of dive into how we can use yoga to reconnect to the mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, as you said, there's so many different styles of yoga. And honestly, for me, I think, um, you know, so. I wanted to just say, I love that you make it yours, because that's what I think yoga and all of these tools are about. It's about figuring it out what yours looks like, and that might be different than mine, and that might be different than someone else's. And that's a good thing. And so I think when you're thinking about it with connecting to the mind and sort of trying to find that relaxation. So, the core to yoga, other than all these other crazy ways that you can do it, whether it's a headstand or laying in shavasana, it's at the core of it, it's about connecting to your breath. And I mean, I think, I know, Rob, you talk a lot about like meditation and, even with your the ice baths and stuff like that. A lot of that is sort of grounding back into the breath and coming back into the breath and using that breath to kind of, release tension, to, just get out of your head, to focus, to, whatever it is, whatever resonates with you, kind of thing. But to me, that's at the core of what yoga is it's just that emphasis on thinking about your breath, and the poses are just a way that you get there. And whether when you're looking at things that are more like a yin or restorative class, the poses are a little bit less active, and that's intentional, so that you have more time and more space to really focus on that breath and really take that quietness.
And I think a really interesting piece for me is in a lot of these poses, a lot of times I find like a hip opener, start to
Mhm.
feel some emotions coming up too, because, really yoga was the first piece that showed me the mind body connection. And I've shared this before, when I had my concussion almost, geez, 10 and a half, 11 years ago, which is kind of what got me started on this health journey. Maybe it's, yeah, about that 11 years ago. Yoga was the first thing I could do because it was in a dark room. We're moving slowly. I'm not getting dizzy. I had sensitivity to lights from the concussion. And it was the first thing that really kind of blended the mind and body together and recognized how moving one affects the other and how they really do work together in that way. And so I find a lot of times if I'm feeling stressed or anxious, which are not, I don't really feel anxious very much. Stress is definitely, I think, a regular part of many of our lives, and it's something I'm actively working on. But usually it's because I have not moved my body enough. And that could be working out, or the other side, what we have to call working in, like restoring that energy, working the energy back into the body. In yoga, when I hold a pose for a long time, I can often feel those rush of emotions. I can feel these thoughts that I've been suppressing. It's like I'm unlocking my body. And now all the stress in my mind is allowed to run free as well. I just think it's really fascinating. So I'd love to hear if you have had any similar experiences with that as well.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I love that. So I mean, what's amazing is, like, you just fed something so easy for me to talk about, which is just, yoga moves the energy in the body. That's what it does, right? So it's like an ancient way of moving the energy around in the body. And what's amazing about it, right, is because we tend to hold energy in certain spots in our body. Sometimes that's where we're feeling pain. Sometimes that's where we're feeling certain things, and the energy gets stale there, right? So, I imagine that even with fitness and things like that, as you're moving around and doing any activities, you can kind of get something similar. But it's all those poses and the way that you're moving and the fluidity of it that kind of like really gets everything kind of moving around. And then if you come back into sort of like, ancient wisdoms around chakras, which we won't go into much detail here, but, each chakra has different components of it that are related to whether it's like emotions or, your foundations and your security and your stability, or, your ability to have relationships both with yourself and with others, things like that. And I don't know if you've heard this in any classes you've taken before, but one side of the body is considered more masculine, one side is considered more feminine. So sometimes people joke around, especially when you're doing hip openers, which can cause lots of emotions for people because we tend to hold a lot of emotions in our hips. A joke that I like to make is like, hey, you have any um any men in your life that are causing some issues? Any women in your life? Maybe that's why the right or the left side is a little bit funny. So anyway.
Yeah, and to that point as well, I think that it's also apparent that we do have a combination of masculine and feminine attributes in each of us. And I think traditionally, if you think of the hips are generally a more feminine attribute. They call them childbearing hips for a reason. That's women tend to have a more focus on the hips. They have stronger hips, wider hips, etc. So it would make sense that if the feminine side is the more emotional, nurturing side, that if we open up the hips, we're probably going to feel some emotions and feel like we need to nurture that area. So this is something that, there's so many different rabbit holes we can dive down to into the body with chakras, with masculine, feminine, yin, yang. We can go down all these different rabbit holes. So we've talked about, how we can reconnect to the mind, but how can we reconnect to the body? Because there's a lot of people on the other side of the coin that are so up here, they're in their heads, we're focused on these screens, all of our motions with our thumbs and our fingers, that we're caught up in our head. We're living in this VR world, this AR world. How can we use yoga to reconnect to our body?
Yeah. So this is where I find like a flow practice is amazing. Like, and you know what, actually any kind of yoga is really good for this because you start building that awareness slowly in your body. I think maybe it's a little bit faster when you do it in, something like a vinyasa flow class or even a gentle flow class, just anything that's got, just a little bit of extra movement going on there. And how it does that, right, is because the teachers, whoever's guiding is kind of giving you cues, put your hand here, put your foot here, think about the weight in your back leg or, whatever the cue is. And you start connecting the mind to the body. And, it's funny, right? It comes to an example would be like, have you ever had where, and maybe not if you don't take pictures of yourself in poses, but maybe this is like another activity and you think you look one way and then you see the film of it and you're like, that's what I look like? What? Like, that's wild. And I think that happens a lot in yoga because, our proprioception is so off in the body because again, like you said, we live so much in our heads that, we don't even notice our hand, or our foot. And what yoga does is, by paying attention to the cues and by paying attention to certain, alignments or focus areas and things like that, all of a sudden you're like, wait, I never felt my toes before. And now I actually am feeling them. And wow, I can really, feel my knee or I can feel this. And you start, building that awareness. And I think that that's really cool. And the other thing that you could do for people that are maybe a little bit more familiar with it, but you could actually try even blindfolding yourself, doing like a gentle flow or even a yin class, because what that does is instead of having to look and see and say, okay, yeah, this is my hand, you're taking away one of the senses. So you're like, okay, this is my hand. Wow, this feels a little bit different than, when I have my vision, I have that extra sense. So
Yeah, and to your point, I think that the mind tends to ignore things that aren't given the focus. The idea of where focus goes, energy flows, and we can see our noses all the time. Our brain just blocks it up because it's not important to be able to see our nose. Like if we're just seeing our nose here in the middle of our vision, that's not very helpful to live the rest of our life if we can just see our nose all the time. And that's something I always think is amazing when we actually focus. We can see our nose. Usually when you close one eye, it's easier to see the nose than the other. Or yeah, I don't know how you do that with the eyes are there, but but we can see that all the time. And like you mentioned about closing the eyes, that's actually one of my favorite practices to do is to do certain movements with my eyes closed. A lot of times when I'm at the gym, if I'm exercising and sometimes I'm, like you said, I'm trying to like, am I symmetrical? Am I holding these the right way? It's like sometimes I'll just close my eyes and feel it. Because if I'm so focused on my vision, we don't know, because what if the angle on the mirror is slightly off? What if the machine is not parallel to the mirror? What, like there's so many little things that I recognize. And actually at the gym I go to, I notice that the squat rack is slightly, there's a slight angle that's not perfectly parallel with the mirror. And so I'm recognizing, like I'm feeling like, oh, something feels off. And I close my eyes and it's like, oh, boom, because I'm too focused on the vision. So that's
mhm.
where I think, a lot of these movements, and obviously I don't think Jen is saying go on, the top of a balance beam and start doing yoga blindfolded,
No.
do this in the right environment. But I think it's a great practice and just give the other senses a chance to really show what they can do.
That's it. Well, the thing that comes up for me too is even, coming to your breath, right? So if you've never closed your eyes and just focused on breathing, even for, 3 breaths, it's just most of us are going through our day, not even being aware of the fact that we're even breathing. So, just something simple like coming back to your breath and noticing that. It's just once you start bringing and inviting that awareness into your life, it's just wild what you start to notice. You start to notice so many things. And yeah, closing the eyes is a really interesting one.
Yeah, and to that point is we use so much of our energy through our eyesight. I mean, as humans, we're just so dominant on our eyes to the point that, I mean, I think it's like, dogs can hear like 50 times better than humans. Like there's a lot of different animals that have a much better usage of their senses than humans do. And so if we can give ourselves a break to actually give the eyes a moment to breathe and to relax, I think we're going to see a big difference.
Totally. And I mean, for anybody that was interested, let's say, in trying some kind of like a blindfolded yoga, don't go crazy, stay close to the ground. And what I'd invite people to do is like touch, like this sounds funny, but like touch your body, right? So like use your hands, use your other senses to help you figure out where you are in that time and space, right? So, you can come into like a low lunge, for example, and then bring your hands, up your calf to your knee and notice, is the knee actually stacked over the ankle? You can start to notice, like, is the knee tracking left or right? You don't need to see it to feel it or to experience it. And so I think when you start to turn a little bit more inward like that, you just start to notice how, yeah, if we pay attention and we start using some of the other senses, there's, almost like a whole other world. So
Right. It is a whole other world. And, yoga in itself is a whole other world. And I'm sure that there's people out there who have maybe not practiced yoga before, don't have a consistent practice. Where do you recommend people start? Because it can be intimidating to go into a 60-minute class. I remember I went to like a power hot yoga. That wasn't my first class. It was like one of my first 10 classes. I hated it. It was so difficult. I had no idea how long this thing was going for. It felt like it lasted forever. It's like 90 something degrees. I'm sweating. It's really difficult. I wasn't very experienced. And so I think a lot of people can envision a yoga class being like that. One, that's not all yoga classes, but maybe somebody doesn't want to go to a class to start. How
mhm.
does somebody get started down the journey to beginning a yoga practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really lucky in the world we are right now because we have access to so much free content. So whether it's on YouTube or on Instagram, there's so many people out there that are willing to share knowledge and kind of give tips or mini sequences and things like that. So I mean, where I would start is just start. So the important thing is just to try. The other thing that I would say is, really think about like what it is that you're trying to get out of your practice. So like Rob, I know you were saying that, you do so many yang activities that for you, when you think about it, you want more yin, like yin is a better fit for where you're at and what you're looking for. And so something that's quieter and softer and, doesn't have as many poses in it is a better option for you. And so I would say, do a bit of research on the different styles of yoga, and you can go down such a rabbit hole with all the different styles that are available. And so if you try one and you don't like it, like don't be afraid to come back and try something different. And also try lots of different teachers and things like that too, because, teachers all have different perspectives on it. There's going to be some that you talk to or connect with and you just are like, oh, I love this. Like I want more. And there's going to be some that you're like, I'm just not vibing with this right now. And that's totally fine. So I think it's just remembering that it's your journey and your practice and just trying to again find something that fits into your life and explore YouTube, explore Instagram. There are so many amazing resources to start there to help you figure out what styles you might like, get a sense of what that looks like, and then try to find someone that you connect with to practice with, or you just develop your own. So
And I think that's a really, really important point because had I just gone to that one class that I didn't like, I could have easily made up the story, oh, yoga's not for me. I'm not good at yoga. I don't like yoga. And I think a
mhm,
lot of people do that, not just with yoga, but a lot of different things is they try something once And like you said, maybe it was the class, maybe it was the style, maybe it was the teacher. There's a lot of different reasons. Maybe you were just having a bad day. Maybe
Hmm.
you had just recovered from being sick or injured or something, and you weren't able to fully participate. And then we create these stories of, I'm not good at that, or that's not good for me. So I think that's really sage advice to, if you're listening right now and maybe you've had the story that yoga isn't for you, or you're not good at yoga, or the funniest one I love was when people say, I'm not flexible.
Mm.
And that's the kind of the point of yoga to some degree, is to get more flexible. It's like people say, oh, I'm not strong, so I'm not going to go to the gym. It's like, well, you go to the gym to get stronger. So it's funny how, we can create all these stories in our mind, but it really, really is important to give yourself the opportunity to try a bunch of different ways. Because again, they're all different tools, and you may need different tools on different days.
That's it. And I think too, a big thing with yoga, and I think you can relate this to, like you said, to so many activities, but it's meet yourself where you are, right? So like if you've got wrist issues going on, like, don't do something that's really wrist focused, or, if you've got like a knee injury, for example, you can do chair yoga, it doesn't make it any less, like it's still yoga. It doesn't make it any less than, because you're doing it in a chair and you're still getting so many benefits from it. So I think if you kind of go in with an open mind and say, okay, maybe it's going to look or feel a little differently than, what I had envisioned, maybe day one, I won't get into that handstand or that headstand or whatever, and just have an open mind and kind of meet yourself where you are at. I think the benefits are just amazing.
I agree. And, I just want to encourage people listening right now to check out Jenn's page, both on YouTube and Instagram, because Jenn also shows a lot of variety of different options on there. And I think that's one thing. There's a lot of different yoga people on social media, not to throw shade at anybody, but I think a lot of times it's people showing off really incredible poses, which is really cool, but that can also be very intimidating for people as well. So I feel like you do a very good job of blending in, practical ways. And I also like the videos. I think the short little videos are nice too. Not having, a 2 hour long tutorial and not just having a picture explaining. I think seeing these short little videos are nice. So really want to encourage people to follow along there. And Jenn, where can people follow along with what you're doing, get to work with you, and just follow along and be part of your journey?
Yeah. And thanks for all that, Rob. That was so kind. And yeah, one of my goals is always to try to figure out how to make yoga accessible and how to find ways to bring it into your life. And so the best way, honestly, I'm the most consistent on Instagram. So, I typically have a daily post on there. You can always reach out to me in the DMs if you've got questions or if you want to get started or need some advice on something, feel free to do that. I'm also on YouTube, a little bit less consistent on YouTube. So both are Move with Jenn. Instagram is Move with Jenn with 3 N's, just because, I couldn't get the other handle. But, and then, yeah, you can head over to my website, movewithjenn.com. So I do offer a few different membership options and class packs and things like that. So you can always drop in, check out a class. The first 7 days is free, so it's no risk. You can come check it out, see if you vibe with the community. I got not tons. I've got 4 classes on there that I teach a week, and I typically also do a donation-based class to support some kind of a charity. We just did one yesterday to support Black Lives Matter, and we raised $141, which was really awesome. So we try and do stuff like that all the time. So yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm here. Message me, DMs, email me, whatever works for you.
Well, Jenn, I appreciate you being here. Everybody listening, I will put those links in the description box as well. So, Jenn, thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I appreciate you and looking forward to many more conversations.
Yes, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for having me, Rob. And thanks everyone who's listening and who tuned in till the end. And yeah, just thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Everybody listen, have an amazing day. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health Rob Carney Podcast. You can check out all the stuff Jenn's doing on Instagram, YouTube, and all the other platforms. I will put those links in the description box below. And as always, I appreciate your support. I do my best to give as much free content as I can, like this podcast, like media on my Instagram and YouTube and other platforms. And what I want to share today is the way that I'm able to do this is by partnering with specific companies. And my favorite company I'm partnering with is called Purium. Purium Health Products stands for Pure and Premium. They're an organic, non-GMO superfoods company based in Southern California, and we ship all over the U.S., Canada, and our partner company ships to Europe as well. If you're from Europe, send me a direct message. It's a slightly different system, but easy enough to get you there. So by you supporting these products, you not only allow me to create more free content for you, spend these time with conversations, editing these podcasts, and bringing the best value that I can, but you also get the best superfoods on the market. So my favorite protein that I want to talk about today are the super amino 23s. And amino acids, as I've talked about on other YouTube videos, are essentially the building blocks of protein. And our body breaks down the different proteins that we're eating, whether that's chicken or fish or nuts or whatever it is, and we're turning that into amino acids. So when we're taking straight amino acids, we're essentially skipping that digestive process, and it allows our digestive system to maintain a fasted state because we're not having to break everything down, and we can actually get some protein. We can have an anabolic fast, and I find it's really beneficial for extended fasting, so I don't feel like I'm losing muscle, don't feel like I'm losing weight. It allows me to maintain that healthy energy levels and that muscle. And it's a really convenient way, especially when I'm on the go. They don't need to be refrigerated. I pop them, when I'm driving. It's a great way before and after the gym. I really love to have the convenience factor that Purium offers, especially with the Super Amino 23s. So I will put the link to the Super Aminos in the description box here as well. And they are part of my favorite pack, because there's a great introductory pack and maintenance pack called the Daily Core 4, which consists of these Super Amino 23s. It also consists of the Power Shake, which are the green juice, also known as the Liquid Sunshine. We have the Biomedic to remove glyphosate from the gut. And we also have the tart cherry juice, known as the Apothecary, to help with sleep, inflammation, antioxidants, and recovery. So you can check both those out. You can save $50 off your first order on the Super Amino 23s, which is a fantastic deal. Normally $75, again for just $25, which is almost like a steal. So take advantage of that. Or if you want to go with the Daily Core 4, you can use the discount code WHOLEHEALTH for both. In the Daily Core 4, you'll save 25% off. Get your fuel in your body, get the baseline nutrition your body needs. And remember, supplements are great. We want to add these to a healthy, holistic lifestyle. They're not a replacement for food. These are an addition, the icing on the cake, or a jump start to get you going on your health journey. So I appreciate your support. I appreciate you, Purium, for allowing me to partner with you, share these beautiful products with the world. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate your continued support. Let's keep on growing and flowing. Have the best year ever, and I will talk to you very soon.